I didn't expect to be teary, but that's probably good. Most of the people that I coach, they cry every time they come about something. This is too scary. This is too hard. I'm ashamed about this art or whatever.
Hi, this is Eric Elder, and welcome to this episode featuring one of my favorite people in the world. This is JOAN Moody. JOAN, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
JOAN is not only a dear friend and a lifetime friend, she's also my first cousin. Our dads are brothers, and JOAN has been instrumental in my life, particularly when I moved to Houston, where she lives, and she took me to church and got me involved in some Bible studies there and really helped lead me to the Lord. And just by her gracious, gentle, encouraging approach. And so I have a lot to be thankful for JOAN. But I really want to talk to her today about her art because she is an artist, and you can find her at joanmoodyartist.com. But she has a passion for art, a passion for using creative gifts and arts in all kinds of aspects of life, but especially in spiritual aspects and spiritual formation and being able to express yourself creatively. She does all kinds of projects in different medium, and she has taught my kids different kinds of art. She's taught art lessons for years, and she does art for corporate projects and rebuilds, and she coaches and she mentors. And enough introduction. I want to get to a question that really intrigued me because you had spent a lot of time doing a artwork that was very fine and detailed, and I pulled out one that she had here, a small piece that she did that I just think is beautiful and gorgeous, and I saw this online on her website. I said, can I get that? I would love to get that. And it's just a cute little picture, just so pretty. And she's done other pieces that are more standard size for walls, but there was a point, JOAN, where you wanted to go big. You wanted to increase your size of your canvas, increase your brushstrokes. Can you tell us what that was about? What inspired you to go big and to really step out like that? What was the difference?
Well, I have a mentor in New Mexico, and one of the big things that we dealt with was fear. That all artists deal with it on some level, and mine was going big. And so step one was get the big canvas, and I mean big, like 48 by 72.
The biggies.
The biggies, and that means big brushes, and that means lots of paint. And I literally wrote myself a permission slip that says, I give myself permission to fail and to have fun. And it was just about show up and dive in. That's my studio model. And so I did. And it's actually the painting behind me.
Oh, okay.
And it really did it felt like in the spiritual realm that fear was just being ripped off of me.
As you painted?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It was a wonderful, challenging, stretching point in my visual art journey.
That is amazing. And just to be able to break out of that fear, and that was the technique for you. I'm thinking of people that are watching this, that they might have some steps of faith they need to take. Maybe for them it's going small, being detailed. Maybe for them it's trying a different medium. Maybe it's...
Yeah. When I have taught many small groups of adult artists that have now gone on, some of them have their own businesses. They initially would say, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not really an artist. And their biggest step was just showing up and beginning to draw or beginning to do watercolor, or how do I use colored pencils? And so everybody shows up differently.
So you really took people from what they felt was step zero and turned them into actually thriving businesses.
Yes.
That's a step.
It has been such an honor to be a part of that journey and be with them in their celebrations and their tears and challenges, and be able to work together and critique their art to get them to the point where it just blossomed to the point where now people see their work online and go, oh, that's, they recognize who they are and what their work is. It's amazing.
Wow. What does that do for their identity or for their confidence or for their, just what does that do for themselves? Not just what it does for the people who see their art, but what does it do for the person?
For many of them, one of the hardest things was just owning and being able to say, I'm an artist, to realize God had really gifted them to be an artist and that they needed to press into that and to ask him what they needed to do and what did it need to look like. And the more they did it, the more they loved it. When they didn't get to do it, they missed it terribly because they have this, I say it's this art creative space that people have in their souls. And if you don't take time for it, then it goes unfilled and you do not feel fulfilled, because when you do work that you feel like the Lord has inspired you to do or given you ideas to do, that in time, people who see it, they are blessed, they are encouraged. And it builds opportunities to communicate with people when people ask about your art.
Wow, you just want to make me cry. I'm just thinking of, just to say I am an artist, to own that and to be that, and whatever fears you have to get over or insecurities or labels, or I just think of being an author. And when someone would call me an author or introduce me as an author, I'm like, oh no, I'm not an author. I write and I do some things, and after I wrote my first book, I'm like, well, it has to sell a certain number of copies before I could call myself an author, and just all of that. And finally I just finally decided, okay, I'm just going to say it, I'm an author. And now 25 books later, I'm like, okay, maybe I could call myself an author, but I still don't think I'm an author. So it's funny, just I'm an artist, I'm a composer, I'm a writer,
a musician,
a golfer.
yes, yep.
Yeah. So what are you, would be my question, not just you, Joan, but what are you, the person watching this, what is that word that bubbles up inside you that you're like, oh, I'd like to be a photographer, I'd like to be known as a this or that, but maybe that word needs to come to the surface, and maybe you just need to try it on. And I remember when I had to put it on a entry form to go into England, I was going to a conference and it asked for your occupation. And that was the first time I wrote it down, and I wrote author. And that just made me laugh. I was like, I am not an author, but I'm claiming it. I'm just going to claim that I'm an author. So I don't know what the word might be for you, but I love that, getting over your fears.
Well, and I would encourage people, one of the things when I mentor people that I encourage them to do is go to trusted people in their life, their family, their husband, their best friends, and ask them, how do you see me? And often, people will say, they said I'm an artist. They said I'm a good hostess. They said I'm a cook. They said but they were shocked often to hear what other people so readily said about them that they had not owned for themselves.
That is a great practical step. Just ask some people around you, what do they see you as? That was a great exercise. And I just remember it's making me think just of when someone called me a pastor for the first time. They said, you're a pastor. And I was like, I was not a pastor. I was a computer guy in a big corporation. And they're like, oh no, you're a pastor. And here I am now, I'm a pastor. So it's funny, other people see things sometimes that we don't. I want to show you a painting that Joan did that I was down in Texas a few years ago, and I loved it. I saw she was working on this. She was just finishing it, and it's this koi fish. Is that what they're called, right? And it was one of your big pieces, and I just loved it. I thought it was beautiful, and I really loved the story that you told me, that koi grow to the size of their surroundings.
That's true.
If they're in a small pond, they're going to stay small, and if they're in a big pond, they're going to get big. And it's not a matter of what's in the fish, it's the surrounding that you're in, what you put yourself in. And again, for you, you put yourself under a mentor who said go big and who helped you go big, and wow, you went big, and you started really selling some pieces at a price that was what you felt was actually worth the price, and worth the piece of art. And I know that was a big breakthrough for you too, just to start seeing some commercial success. Can you talk about that a little bit? And just, it's one thing to be an artist, it's another to make it a vocation, make it a living, make it a viable venture. Can you tell about your path to that? Maybe even start back to when you thought that art might be your substantive piece of your life.
Well, I had no intention of being an art teacher. It never crossed my mind. I was a very poor, bored student, is how I would have described myself growing up. But I started taking private lessons when I was young, and then continued investing in art and doing art all the way. And then when it was time to go to college, decided I would study art, again with no interest really in teaching, but someone, professor said, you really, I think, would be a great teacher. You should at least take a few education classes. And I hesitantly did so, and I had a fabulous professor who really spoke into my life and showed me creative ways to make a classroom the most exciting place for people to show up to. And I caught the vision and ended up getting did double student teaching, and was certified to teach kindergarten through 12th grade. And I have literally done so for 14 years. I lived in Russia and had the opportunity to do that, to work with children there. I've gone to orphanages and done tie-dye with 100 kids who just thought it was Christmas. And it has been a wonderful thing. And well, then I got to the place where someone said, you really need to start your own business and call it Joan of Art. Because I was
great name. I love that.
I was seeing that there was a change in my interest in staying in public school. And then I just took the leap and began to figure out, what is it to get a tax ID number, and how do I do this thing? And I'm telling you, I am not business brained, and if I can do it, you can do it.
You've got a very typical artist mentality, but the business side took some work. Huh?
Yes, but I have learned to streamline some things, and I have a wonderful accountant in my husband.
Perfect. So you've done other things before art, and you've done lots of other things in your life.
14 years I taught in the public and private schools and overseas before I really jumped into owning a business.
And it's interesting to me to hear that you didn't see yourself as a teacher. I think you were a teacher when you've gone on to teach lessons of, public schoolers, homeschoolers, private lessons, mentoring adults. Your schedule has been fairly full of lessons, both in person and online. And I was shocked one day. I was asking you if you should, if you would put your lessons online, and because I think people could do them over and over. And you said, oh, you've never repeated a lesson. Every lesson was new. Every art project was new. Everything that you taught was new. Every class, every year, for year after year after year. Like, Joan, that is incredible. You are a fountain of creativity.
Well, I can't say that anymore, because the last few years I have doubled up.
Praise God, I'm glad. You got a lot of great lessons. I'm like, oh my gosh, if you just do that lesson over and over, but I'm sure you'd get bored. But if you film it, people will love it. They'll come. Okay. Anyway, so you are a teacher par excellence, but you like also doing corporate projects and connecting with designers. And tell me a little bit about that, and how does that work, both from a business side and from an interaction with a client side?
I haven't had enough time really to paint big until the last few years. And in that have been willing to connect with designers, and on various projects that they see where my work can fit in, they have asked me to show them pieces of work, and then they select from that. Or in some cases, I've gotten commissions to do something for a particular home for one of their clients. So that's really how it works.
Great. That's a whole nother business side to it too, where you can really help big businesses and small businesses. And I know you show your art in various venues. A new restaurant opened there in Pearland, I think, and they wanted some artwork on the wall, and you provided all kinds of art, and they're able to use it. And if some of it sells too, then that's good for you too. So there's lots of ways to get your work out there. How about
Yep.
online and on your website and on Facebook, just in terms of marketing or getting your word out? How do you do that, or how has that worked for you? A lot of artists are just wondering, where am I going to find a market? Do I have to go to festivals? Do I have to go to art shows? Do I have to, is there another way I can do it to
There
connect?
are a lot of people who love festivals, but when I went to the top artists that I knew that were successful and asked their opinion, 100%, they said, don't do that. It's too much time. There's so many other ways to do it. Get a website, just keep painting, hire a good photographer. Now there is a online platform called, I think it's called Art Room, and you can take your paintings and put it into a venue, and it looks like a professionally done shot, and it helps with people seeing the size. Because if you just post a painting, they don't know how big, nobody can visualize how big or small it is.
That's great. How about turning your art into other products? Have you ever explored that at all?
I do have a piece of art that I had decided that I would be willing to do giclées of, which is to get a high-end copy of it made. But I was told, don't get into the copy business if you don't want to store copies. So you need to be really selective on what you print, because you don't want to end up with a bunch of stuff that you put in a closet or under your bed that hasn't found a way to get out there. But there are artists that put it on mugs, they put it on aprons. There are companies that will take your art and for a minimal price put it on pillows, make it into dresses. But you have to invest money up front, and there are endless opportunities out there. And I personally have not chosen to go that direction, but there are plenty successful artists that have done it, and mostly it's using the internet.
I wonder if you could talk a little about, maybe we shift gears to your personal life a little. You've been through some pretty intense, I would say across the board challenges in life, situations. You've counseled countless people through terrible crises. I guess the question is, how have you gone through some of those things? How does your faith help you? If you want to talk about art in the midst of that too, but really, I just am curious. How do you make it through so many challenge after challenge after challenge?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is how many years I struggled with being single, and just the loneliness of that, and the questions, and the wrestling with God, and wanting it to look like something that wasn't happening. And finally coming to the point where I just said, it makes me cry because it was so huge that I just said, if I never have a permanent address, if I never have a husband, if I never have kids, if I never have a car that works great, Lord, if you're in it, I want it. And I make myself available. And, if I'm going to be whatever you want me to be, if you want me to stop doing art, if you want me to pick up more art. I had no idea that I would stay in Texas. I wanted to go to Colorado and live there. And I spent every single penny of my savings to do it. And I, for the first time in my life, was told no, or not offered a job 12 different things that I had gone so committed to find whatever open door there was.
Wow.
And there wasn't one. And, you just keep showing up and saying, God, what do you want? And stop and be willing to listen to what he says, even if you don't want to hear it. When I was single, I finally told God, my picker is broken. If you don't pick, I am going to be happy to be single the rest of my life. And in a matter of months, my husband was in my life, and I could see things were changing. When Harvey hit Houston, and my parents lost their home of 51 years, and all childhood things, and life was topsy-turvy. We had community. We had each other. We sought the counsel of friends. We met together and prayed and said, God, we need your help to get through this. it isn't normal to get through things like this alone, and we weren't intended to be alone. We need community, and that's what I believe for artists too. Artists who are stuck in their house painting by themselves, the chances of them blossoming to the fullness of their intention is unusual, because we need each other's critique, we need each other's encouragement, no different than in my journey of faith.
How would you encourage someone to get involved in community if they're not part of an artist community? Do you look for one? Do you start one? How do you do that? How would others do that?
I have a once a month or art group that meets, and we paint together and we critique work. I have a Facebook group called Artist Friday, and we're posting work on Fridays. It doesn't have to be anybody that has experience, and it can be people who've been painting for 50 years. Anybody can post any kind of art, any kind of creativity. There's no boundaries. It's your choice. And it's been really fun to see the broad spectrum of what people are doing. And art encourages artists.
That's great. And are those groups you've started, or groups you've joined, or all of the above?
All of the above.
Great.
When I do go to New Mexico about every other year and paint for 10 days with artists from all over, I mean, not just the United States. And there is something magical that is God-given that happens when artists gather. I don't care if it's writers or musicians. It's different when you're at home, but it's magical when you get with people who speak your language, who are seeking the same thing and want to do their very best.
Well, that makes me want to cry too. I just think that's amazing, because your art is really very individual, and it's a very solitary thing that you invest so much of your person into it. And yet what you're saying is there's some huge element of community that really brings it to life. I just think that's really cool. And it's probably the same for our faith. You can have a very private faith. You can just read your Bible on your own. You can pray on your own. But when you get around other people, I know for me, it was getting in a small group and just talking through the issues, talking through what each person was going through, hearing it from different eyes. And at one point, it finally sparked in my heart too, to say, wow, I want more, I want more, I want deeper. And there's so much I can learn. Sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. And being around other people reveals a lot of that.
Yes.
Because you can't ask the question if you don't even know there's a question to be asked. But maybe sometimes being around other artists, you see different things, different ways of looking at it. How does it help to define your own style? Like when some artists, they struggle to find their own place. Would you think being in community somehow helps you to define your own style? I'm just curious.
I don't think community has necessarily helped me. It may have helped others, but mostly it's the discipline of any art is you just keep showing up to it. You keep showing up to it. Some days you have a good day at the piano. Some days it's not a great day at the piano, but you showed up. And cumulatively, I think for any kind of art, you will get better. You will hone your style. It just takes time.
What about an artist who, of course, they don't want to use the term artist for themselves. They feel like they have these gifts. They think that, maybe there's something in there, but they're not sure. What would be you've said your mantra. You can say your mantra again, but I guess what would be the first step that they would take, and the second step and the third step?
Oh, goodness. I would say the first thing is say yes. Just say, okay, yes, I'm going to try something. So maybe it's you go to the art store and you just walk the aisles. Do you want to do watercolor? Or do you want to buy a pencil set? Or do you want to buy a simple paint set? And then look up online, join a group or a class in your arts league in your area. Do a 6-week class. Or just start. I have a friend that she sits down every morning with her sketchbook and she draws her breakfast, or she draws at breakfast. And that's just her thing. That's how she's, started. But I would say give yourself, I'm big on this whole thing of permission slips. Give yourself permission to do it imperfectly. Just try it. Give yourself a safe place to just have fun.
And you're even saying not just figuratively, but literally write it out.
Yes.
I give myself permission to fail, or something like that.
Yes. To do it imperfectly.
That is great. That is great. Do you have some books or other things you would recommend people, maybe next steps that they might take that would help them in their art?
Well, one of the there are some books. This is called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. It is a real basic drawing book, and she has some fun techniques. Now, I won't say that I've read through the whole book, but the principles and some of the assignments are super helpful. Another book that if you happen to be a painter is called Fill Your Oil Paintings with Light and Color. It's by Kevin McPherson, MacPherson, Kevin McPherson. And the first time I saw his work, I literally did not go anywhere the rest of the afternoon. I sat in this room in a gallery and stared at it, and I couldn't figure out why I was so captivated. Well, had I bought that painting for $800, it would be worth about $1,500 now, and it's only an 8x10 or 9x12. Now he's an internationally known artist, but he goes through basic steps to start painting.
Great.
And the last book that I'd recommend is Jack Canfield's The Principles of Success. He's the guy that wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. His stuff is succinct, it's clear, it's doable for somebody who didn't go to school for business. It's real practical, and I just highly recommend it. And if you really want to dig in, he has a workbook that goes with it.
Those are great. Thanks so much. I know I loved painting in college. I took a class in oils, and it was just really fun. And I found that I dropped it all. I left it after I went away to work and working in corporate America. And it wasn't really until a few years ago, after I lost my wife to cancer, and I just started trying to find some other outlets. And I just went to like Merlot and a Masterpiece is a place that's around here. And someone was just talking about how therapeutic it felt just to brush paint on a canvas. Just the act of stroking the paint onto the canvas. And I thought, that sounds really good. That sounds really relaxing, and not to worry about whether it turns out great or not. And I just had some fun. I've done it several times. And, I am not, I would say I am not an artist, but I like painting. But
you are.
Those Merlot and it's like, it's fun to do. And it took a couple hours, and then you're done with painting, and you give yourself some permission. But this is one that Joan helped me do, that I had a picture of my car, my Mini Cooper convertible that I had bought, and I loved it so much that I told her I would really like to paint my car. And of course, she and her husband were flipping out. Why would I paint that beautiful car? She thought I was going to paint her car, because she has friends who actually do that for projects, and they paint their cars. But no, I didn't want to paint the car.
Right.
I wanted to paint a picture of the car, and but I remember starting that and thinking, I'm not going to be able to do it. But you walked me through, just online, you walked me through some very simple things about how to transfer the photograph, and tracing it onto a piece of paper, and so the pencil would be able to transfer onto the canvas, and so it made it a lot easier in terms of designing it, and then filling it in. And I remember wanting to get rid of it after a few weeks of painting it, because I just thought, this is terrible. And you encouraged me to keep going and try a different color, try a different mix. And by the end, I just loved it. I thought, oh, this is really pretty. It's really nice. I like it, and I hang it up in my room. So yes, you too can do art.
Yes, you can.
I don't remember what the Bob Ross phrase was, but you can do it.
You can. And I think any painting, if broken down into small steps, is doable for anybody. It may take longer, but it's doable.
That's great. What mediums do you like working in the most, and then currently, as far as art projects? Just, I know you do all kinds of projects, but
Right. The most, what I love is mixed media that I build. I do the big, bold, broad strokes with big, thick gesso first all over the canvas. Just cover it. It's wild. It's fun. And then I build from thin watercolor to acrylic, and then hone in and add oils. And if I want to, I mix cold wax with oils. And that's really my process, and it has to go that direction. It can't go the other way. You have to end with oils.
wow, that is very mixed media.
It is very mixed media.
And what do you like about it? Just the whole variety, or the layering, or the what's intriguing to you about it?
Well, I like the transparency that you can get of watercolors,
Hmm.
and the softness of the colors. You can't get that in oils. And a lot of acrylics are very opaque, which is good in areas, but I don't want it all over the canvas. And then when acrylics dry, they dry 2 values darker. But with oils, when you really need a color, when you really, I mean, that's the beauty of oils. Whatever color it is wet, it dries the same color. It doesn't change values.
That's interesting. I didn't know the difference of 2 values different
So
acrylics.
I just like the building
Hmm.
from transparent to bold color.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a little more complex mentally and creatively too, to have all those different things going on at one time. Can you talk just a bit about where your faith intersects your art, or your art intersects your faith? You know, how does your faith inspire your art, and how does your art inspire your faith?
Well, I know that my most common prayer when I go up to the studio before I paint is, the longer I live, and I don't know why it makes me cry, I know that God is creator. He
Mm.
stars, the colors, you know, the beauty. And artists love beauty. They love to hear it. They love to see it. And the opportunity to say, God, use my hands, and through my hands create beauty is amazing. It's really a gift. And I just asked him in the beginning, I said, my hands are yours. Please use this time as I paint in the studio. And I usually paint in quiet. I used to paint with music all the time, but I found that I want the quiet.
Mm. Well, I love the idea that God is creator. He's creative, and when we are creative, we are doing what we are made in his image to do.
And I have found there's a huge battle to get that to happen. Oh, I mean, it's not just me, it's not just visual artists, but there is a battle that is opposed. The enemy is opposed to beauty and to art, and I need other people to know that I'm showing up in the studio and that I'm going to work it. I need to seek him first about it, because it does make a huge difference. I found to just call it what it is.
Mm.
And even if it's hard to show up, great, get a paintbrush and just start somewhere.
So there is a spiritual component to this that's also working against you, that you need to tap into God's power to have the strength to keep going, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to be teary, but that's probably good. Most of the people that I coach, they cry every time they come about something. This is too scary. This is too hard. I'm ashamed about this art, or whatever. One of the things that I have found that is uniquely a part of all of my classes is I try to create a safe place for people to come and show up and fail. That it's okay to not do it perfect. It is a place to come and work together and not leave with a masterpiece, but try your best.
Well, I'd like to show one more piece of art that you did for our family that was so special and just made me want to cry at the time and makes me want to cry again. But when Lana was diagnosed with
Uh,
cancer, and she was just on the last few weeks of her life, you asked if you could come up and do a painting with us that you wanted to focus on life and how much life Lana gave to those around her and to our kids and to me. And you came up with this idea that I thought was beautiful, and I'll just show it to you here. And it is this tree of life where Joan had Lana put her hand and my hand with our arms there in two slightly different colors, being the tree and our hands, and then our 6 kids, they each put both of their hands on the tree to be the branches. And you just had some beautiful earth tone colors, and it was just a nice mix. You seem to have all this in your mind already when you started, but I just loved it, and it was something that we were able to do together as a family, and to really memorialize her and even her handprint, very personal handprint, and hang on the wall. It hangs in our living room very thankfully, and it's a beautiful reminder of the life that she's given to so many people. I just so
including me.
much appreciate that. You know, you can use art in ways that just really touches people's hearts and is long lasting. And you think about the Rembrandts or the Picassos or the different spiritual paintings or just even secular paintings, but they've lasted the length of time and the number of people that will stand and look for hours at them in a gallery. And your art can really make a lasting difference in the world, but also on a person's life. And just to create something like this for someone who's going through a difficult time, that meant so much to me and so much to my family. And it's going to be an heirloom that will be passed on for generation to generation. And I've already turned it into icons, and icons meaning on the desktop. And
Yes,
I've
yes.
I put an image on the back of her bench, that
Oh,
bench, you know, when we
yeah.
had it carved into the stone and outlined in there. So it's going to
Mm.
be a quite permanent fixture, both digitally and in stone and on our wall. And I just wanted to close with that because I just feel like you can create art that can really, really touch people's lives in a deep, deep way. And whether it's very personal like this, or whether it's very public like a gorgeous painting that you'd find in the Louvre, or whether it's something that you know, God would put on his refrigerator because he's so
Yes.
happy. Whatever the project is, I just want to encourage you to do it, to step out in your faith and claim to be an artist, claim to be creative. Go ahead and step out and be who God created you to be. You're created to be a creative being. And when you do that, you can feel God's pleasure as you put your paint on the canvas, as you write your words of your play, as you compose the song that you sing. There's so many different ways to use your gifts and talents. Joan, any parting words that you would like to say just to encourage people in using their gifts to the fullest?
I think just what I said before is just say yes. Be willing to step out there and try it. It will bring you joy and it will bring others joy.
That is terrific. Joan, I love you so much. As a sister
Love
in
you.
Christ,
Thanks.
as a cousin, as a friend.
Fun.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Okay.
It's been fun. People can find Joan at Joan Moody Artist, JOANMOODY artist.com. And feel free to connect with her. I'm sure she would love to encourage you one-on-one or in other ways, just to give you a boost in your faith. Maybe join her painters group, her artist group, or there's lots of ways that you can connect with Joan and be encouraged by her personally as well. Thanks so much, Joan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, Eric.
Bye-bye.